But the fact that the Seahawks have been shopping him as recently as like a year and 2 years ago.
But remember, they explored the possibility before they had to give him a huge contract, which in some ways does cripple you.
So the math they went through in their head is the same math that the Vikings have probably gone through with Kirk Cousins, which is, all right, we like you. Vikings like Cousins. I think the Seahawks should love Wilson. I don't know if they love him or like him, because the fact that they hesitated and maybe tried to trade him for the number 1 overall pick a couple years ago, like, here's how I would frame this up. The problem in the NFL is that too many teams get sucked into needing a long-term solution at quarterback, and therefore, like, the minute someone who's starting caliber enters the room, it's like, all right, we'll pay you top dollar, because there is no middle class of quarterback salaries in the league. If you look right now, the top, Russell Wilson makes $35 million a year. Well, there's literally like 9 other guys that make $29, $30, $31 million. So a third of the league now just makes. It's like if you're a starting quarterback that has emerged into his late 20s or early 30s, you make $30 million. And I think that's a huge mistake. And the Seattle Seahawks looked at Russell Wilson at some point in the last couple of years, according to, and I believe, like, I don't think that this is just being thrown at the wall. I believe that this conversation probably took place.
I think it's pretty much been confirmed it did.
They've said, all right, we like you, but we don't feel like you should be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. If you look at like Pro Football Focus last year, the difference between Russell Wilson and even like Pat Mahomes and other quarterbacks, so they have something called PFF WAR now, where they literally put a wins above replacement total on a head, like we would in baseball and like we would in basketball. And the Russell Wilsons of the world are worth like 4.5 or 5 wins above, a backup replacement caliber quarterback.
Sure.
No other guy is worth 3. And I think the mistake that people, and Kirk Cousins, by the way, is like 1 or 2 wins above replacement, and like you'd rather have that than just but I don't want to pay something other than top quarterbacks $30 million. And that's where I come in here and I'm like, all right, if I could in 3 years from now, if I could pay Russell Wilson the same amount of money I'm paying Kirk Cousins, I would sign up for that 10 times out of 10. It gives me a better chance to build the rest of my roster. I have less to make up for with Russell Wilson because he's mobile and he's just flat out better.
Right.
I like Kirk Cousins. I love Russell Wilson. If there's a chance to swap them in 2 years, sign me up 10 times out of 10.
Okay.
That's where I'm at with this.
Okay, where I am going to defend what the Seahawks were doing, though, is based on this. It's based on the fact that when a quarterback is going to eat up as much as Wilson was, which I believe the contract totaled $35 million in guarantees, when a quarterback's about to do that to you, this is as I said before, it's a league in which the clock is constantly ticking on said player. So this is, in baseball, you're pretty sure of what you got for, and quarterbacks can last for a long time. But, guys like Wilson and Mahomes and Watson also take a physical beating that some quarterbacks don't take. And so that makes you concerned about the clock again. If you have the confidence that you can get that top pick and pick the right quarterback, you've now put yourself into basically a locked 5-year cost on the new quarterback, which allows you then to build up the rest of your roster. I'm not saying that the Seahawks, it sounds crazy. Like at first blush, it sounds absolutely nuts. But I think if you go through the math of what they were thinking and the possibilities that they're exploring, given how the player plays, it's an interesting discussion.
I actually think it's nuts. I really do. Like, I think I still think Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, despite what PFF's analytics say last year. I would still take Pat Mahomes, and part of it is Pat Mahomes missed a bunch of games.
Yep.
So Pat Mahomes would be number 1 in basically any analytics category. But Russell Wilson is like,
but do you see my point?
The next guy.
But my point is about the clock ticking and you trying to guess. Football's a sport where you're constantly trying to guess when it's going to end. And so I get the exploration. They didn't do it.
But he's 32. Like, his mobility might end at some point, but he's also a wonderful passer. And his mobility is not going to be 0. He's not going to be Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm. You know what QBs are? QBs are rich guys with wives. Turnover's constant. The turnover is constant. God. It's not fair, but it is.
What do you mean the turnover is constant? The turnover is 0 with quarterbacks.
That there's some... No, but they're always looking for, can I get a younger guy at a lesser costs to plug into my team? And all I'm saying is I understand if Seattle had traded Russell Wilson, it would have seemed crazy, and I probably would have sat here with both of you guys saying they're nuts. But when you think about their thinking, I understand at least exploring it.
But so this is why I think it's nuts. And the difference between how you would handle Russell Wilson in this instance versus how you would handle Kirk Cousins. First and foremost, you're never going to, like, when you set a new quarterback salary bar, it's never like $5 or $10 million more than the next. It's what does the highest paid guy make right now, and then the next guy gets like $500,000 more a year. It's been that way for 5 or 6 years now. Where okay, Matt Ryan gets Cousins gets this contract, then Matt Ryan gets this contract, and it's like incremental steps above. So if Russell Wilson isn't asking for $10 or $15 million above what the next quarterback is making, which is, by the way, what Adrian Peterson was doing as a running back with his last Vikings contract. Mm-hmm. I am comfortable paying Russell Wilson at the top of the quarterback.
So you don't get it.
But here's my secondary point.
Yeah.
I am willing to pay Russell Wilson the most money of any quarterback, provided it's like in line with, like, just slightly above the next guy.
Okay.
Because I got to think about its salary cap and how I build the rest of my roster. Kirk Cousins is not good enough to be in that same salary conversation as Russell Wilson, yet he makes about the same amount of money. That's the problem I have. If I have Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins standing next to each other, I still think Kirk Cousins is like a top 10 quarterback, but I don't think he should be making $30 million.
I agree with you completely.
So, if my goal is to win a Super Bowl, I can win a Super Bowl paying Russell Wilson that money. I don't know if I can unless I get everything else perfect paying Kirk Cousins that money. That is my point.
I'm drawing no comparisons between Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. To me, it's I'm with you completely. What I understand is what Seattle was doing. And if you think the next great quarterback is coming down the pike and I can extract for the first, this was not for, 2 third-round picks and a fifth. This was for the first overall pick in 2018 draft, which was Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and maybe they would have drafted somebody else.
Well, right, exactly. But if I make that trade and I get that pick and there is a Deshaun Watson coming out, or there is a Patrick Mahomes coming out, and I feel I've identified that player, what I'm trying to say is I understand the thought process of, oh my God, we could get the next great thing on a 5-year controlled contract, and now I can supplement elsewhere. But I am, just to be clear, not for 1 second trying to draw any parallels between how I think of Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson.
And I think every team except like 6 or 7 should be looking to do that. They should be looking for the next stud quarterback on a team control contract, because guess what? Even if that guy isn't the next stud quarterback, at least he doesn't make $30 million and doesn't handicap the rest of your roster building chances. Russell Wilson is a guy that I am just never swapping out for, like, oh, but if I could swap him out and maybe draft a guy for team control, like, nope.
Okay.
There are 5 or 6 quarterbacks I will just flat out pay $35 million to. Russell Wilson, Pat Mahomes. I think Deshaun Watson is emerging into that category. Drew Brees is still in that category right now. And we could fight about, like, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady at the back end of their careers, et cetera. Like, it's probably
Lamar Jackson.
Luckily, you get a couple years to still figure that out.
Okay.
Like, I need 1 more year to figure that out. Right. If you're going to get last year's Lamar Jackson, yes, he's in that category. Everybody else, I am very hesitant to pay the $30 million that everyone seems to make if given the choice to just go draft somebody and, maybe there's a 20% chance they become a top 5 or 6 guy or top 7 guy for a lot less money. The mistake people make, like, I've got the list of quarterback salaries here in front of me. Like, Ryan Tannehill is going to get $30 million this year only because, well, he's a starting quarterback who's up for a contract.
I'm with you completely here.
What?
I just think that the one thing that I feel that I've learned about this league is loyalty in this sport is almost always a mistake. And so if you're constantly looking to swap out parts, I think you're actually pretty smart.
Jared Goff is going to make $33 million.
Let's go back to 2018. What would you have given up to get Russell Wilson? Is there no one that was untouchable on your Vikings roster? Like, if let's say Seattle said Danielle Hunter and even a first for Russell Wilson, would you pull the trigger?
At the time, Danielle Hunter wasn't Danielle Hunter a couple years ago. So at the time, the answer would have been yes. And even right now, let's say right now.
Okay, right now, yeah.
Would you trade Danielle Hunter in a first-round pick for Russell Wilson? Yes. And Danielle Hunter, which we're going to get into
I got to throw Kirk Cousins
in a different episode of Purple Daily, like, Danielle Hunter is one of the greatest pass rushers in Vikings history and has more sacks by the age of 25 than any player in football history. Well, since they started tracking sacks in 1980. But the value of a top quarterback is so above and beyond any other position in the NFL that you'd have to say yes. And you might say, well, wait a second. Danielle Hunter's 25. Russell Wilson's 32. Right, but Russell Wilson might play for 10 more years. Like Tom Brady's 43, for God's sakes. Russell Wilson,
I think he's gonna break down. That's my problem there. I think the style
he's
of play.
not taking a ton. I mean, he's not.
He takes enough. He takes enough physical punishment that I'd be concerned there.
Would you trust him to sit back like Drew Brees and Russell Wilson are comparable height-wise, right?
Yeah.
I think Russell Wilson in 3 or 4 years when the mobility goes away a little bit more, I could see him just sitting back in the pocket and just, especially having been in the NFL for 10 years and just picking apart defenses. Like I would make that bet. If you're giving me a chance to just start my team with Russell Wilson, age 32,
Yeah, I love the guy.
I would figure out everything else.
I love him. I just get the whole point of trying to explore your potential options. And every time that you stick with a guy in this league, except for very few, I feel like it potentially hurts you. And with where Seattle was going, I think to explore a trade is probably smart. Not to make the trade, but to at least explore it, to make calls. Smart move. That to me is a progressive thinking franchise that knows that, hey, if we sit back and we just ride this thing, eventually it's going to bite us in the ass. And it doesn't mean that we have to make the trade or make a dumb trade. But, if you're talking about exploring trading your quarterback for the first overall pick and he is getting towards 30, I think it's a pretty smart thing to explore and see what's out there.
And I think ordinarily you should question everything. I agree. Like ordinarily, don't be the this is the way we always do it guy. But there are 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the NFL that are just untouchable, and he's one of them. And it therefore becomes now you're outsmarting yourself. All right, if you're looking to trade Russell Wilson in his prime for a draft pick, you're outsmarting yourself.
Danielle Hunter, Harrison Smith, and a first-round pick.
Yes, dude. Like
Mike Zimmer just quit.
I want to start my franchise. And some people might be saying, what do you mean you have Kirk Cousins? The difference between Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson is vast.
Oh, absolutely.
It is vast.
Yeah,
and Cousins is a top 10 guy, maybe.
I am not for one second arguing against him. He is a great QB. He's incredibly smart. He's athletic. He does a ton of great things. I would take him. Kirk Cousins he's a really nice guy.
He should be making $15 million.
He's a nice player.
If Kirk Cousins made $15 million,
that guy's a star.
I'd feel great about him because that would give you $15 extra million to get a left tackle and whatever.
Play the sounder again. I've got a question off the question.
Reckless speculation.
Give me in the next 4 to 5 years, but the next 5 years or so. Give me the quarterbacks, the veteran quarterbacks around the league who might be departing from their teams. Give me who you would want to be the Vikings quarterback 4 years down the road.
So after the Cousins,
so we got Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers.
Well, Russell Wilson's at the top of the list.
Russell Wilson.
I would take Aaron Rodgers in a couple years.
Drew Brees around 50.
I might actually take him too.
Yeah, actually only 45.
I mean, really, I'm not just looking to swap Kirk out for anybody, but if I could swap Kirk out for a highly touted college quarterback,
say Kirk just leaves. It's time.
And save $30 million. Aaron Rodgers is going to be 37. He's 37 now, or he's going to be 37 this year.
Yep.
I actually I'd love to take a flyer on him when he's 39. What the hell? It worked with Brett Favre. He just didn't throw that dumb interception in the NFC Championship game. Would you take a flyer on 40-year-old Ben Roethlisberger in a couple of years?
No.
I don't think I would.
He might be in worse shape than me right now.
I think he's good, man. He's got a couple championships. He's made a bunch of money.
Yeah, it's not going to end well for him.
Otherwise, I don't know. There's not a lot of guys. I don't want to sit here and devalue Kirk too much, but if I have a choice in a few years between Kirk Cousins and 40-year-old Ben Roethlisberger, I'm still sticking with Kirk Cousins. The list isn't that long. But if I also have a chance to draft the second quarterback off the board, in 2 years and have that be a franchise guy potentially, then I make that choice too. So
Wilson is first, Rodgers is second.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair.
Yes. And that's a wrap on this episode of Purple Daily.
That's totally reckless.
Little reckless speculation.
Totally reckless.
Reckless speculation.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.